This morning, I want to set the context, I think, for this conversation that we're going to have around the role of businesses in communities. I want to really look at the broad agenda. We have some of our member organisations here who are going to help bring that to life, and really business in the community is nothing without its members there, the organisations that are out there and engaging in the work. So I don't want to detract from what they are going to say. But what I want to do this morning is to set the broader agenda, the context of where business in the community has come from, some of the projects that we've engaged in the past, and some reflections on where the challenges and opportunities lie whenever it comes to businesses engaging in their communities. I have a small number of slides to take people through this morning just to help bring things to life a bit more. So business in the community, who are we and where have we come from? Well, we are the Responsible Business Network. We work with several hundred organisations across the province who are committed to being responsible businesses, and we're the only network for responsible business in Northern Ireland. We work with the leading companies across the province, and we work with a real range of sectors and sizes and various ownerships of businesses. So we're very lucky to have a broad range of organisations that are committed to being responsible that work with us. And ultimately, we exist to support and challenge business to be a force for good in society, whatever that looks like. And you'll see on the right-hand side there a list of our current board members and the types of organisations that are currently helping us figure out what our strategy and agenda should be over the next 3 to 5 years. And you'll see some big organisations there, all with an active interest in their communities. But the bit that for me is most interesting or most relevant probably to this discussion is where we came from as an organisation. We were founded 40 years ago in England initially. And this statement that healthy back streets make for healthy high streets was the premise upon which business in the community was founded. Business in the community was founded by a group of businesses who were really struck by the impact of the riots that were happening across England, and Brixton riots in particular. And they were very struck at the impact it was having, that the rioting was having on the communities, and saw some real challenges that communities were facing come to the fore and rise to the surface. And they believed that they had an opportunity to step in and to try and affect some change by using their resources and skills in a positive way in the community. And a group of businesses got together to do just that, and they formed Business in the Community. Shift on a few years in Northern Ireland, then a number of business leaders were brought together under the similar premise and to say, would you consider creating a similar network in Northern Ireland? And John Heaslip at the time, Kieran Harding, took a number of our key organisations, some of which are on this call today, also the likes of what was Shorts at the time, some of the key banks, various industries, into inner city Belfast to get in, to speak to communities, to try and understand what life was for them, and to try and get a handle on what they could do as businesses to try and support communities to become more self-sustaining at that moment in time. And they created ultimately what is now known as Business in the Community in Northern Ireland. Our overall vision is to have a world where responsible business is at the core of every organisation. We are not behind the door in saying that businesses need to be successful. It is healthy in our mind for a business to make a profit, but what we're really interested in is how businesses go around becoming successful and profitable, and how they use their skills and resources on a day-to-day basis to be a responsible organisation. And really what we want to do is to inspire and support businesses to be a force for good. And you'll hear from some of those businesses today on the types of activities that they're undertaking in the community. Where things have shifted though, from whenever we were formed to where we are now, things have changed quite considerably. So 30, 40 years ago, the idea of businesses engaging in the community often happened on one-off sporadic projects or determined by a specific need, for instance, that arose in the community or that a business became aware of. And generally, this idea of being a responsible business happened in pockets of activity across businesses. What we're seeing shifting now is that businesses now have full responsible business strategies that look across the various aspects of what it means to be a responsible business. And Gareth, I was struck by some of the activities that you're talking about happening across the BUC agenda, for instance, the climate change piece and the planting the trees, the conversations that are happening with young people around mental health, for instance, instance, that very much mirrors what businesses are trying to do whenever it comes to trying to be a responsible business. And broadly, whenever we talk about responsible business, we talk about 3 Ps. What businesses can do to be responsible to the planet, what they can do to be responsible to their people, so their current and their future workforce, in terms of, for instance, being an inclusive employer, trying to help their employees to remain healthy, for instance. And then finally, what an organisation does in the places in which it operates. And that is really where the heart of our community engagement activity takes place within business in the community. And you'll see along the top row of boxes there that one of them points to social inclusion and prosperity. And that's the area that I want to focus on over the next few moments, because that's where a lot of the most relevant activity to this discussion has happened. So we work with our 200 plus member organisations to try and really think through what they can do in terms of enabling social inclusion and prosperity in the communities across the province. We really want to raise aspirations in our communities. We want to work with our business to ensure that they support skills development and ultimately work to try and engage businesses fully in society and help people to prosper to the best of their abilities. And again, as I said, you'll be hearing from a number of our organisations today on how they have done that. But within business in the community, we do have targets and goals that we want to try and tackle as part of our role in addressing social inclusion and prosperity. And we want to direct our member organisations to a number of key themes if possible. So we really want our member organisations to think about how they can provide expertise and support to their local communities. There are so many skills in-house in our businesses, often that they forget that they even have because they're using them on a day-to-day basis. And we find that it's incredibly beneficial whenever we take some of those really skilled business people out into local community organisations and help them share their skills in a structured way. And that really highlights to the business person the skills that they've developed during their time in the role in the business, but also really helps a community organisation, in instance, leapfrog and develop quite quickly on availing of a skill that otherwise would have to be brought in potentially as a consultancy cost potentially. We have a lot of programs and initiatives that are directed towards helping young people develop confidence and get ready for the world of work, and a lot of work that goes on in and around reducing barriers for excluded groups in particular to try and get them into the world of work and create inclusive workplaces for our communities across the province. To bring some of those aspirations to life and what that actually looks like, I just want to take you through a few examples of what our organisations have done in more recently, and then just some reflections on where I think the challenges and opportunities are over the next while. So broadly, the way that we work with our member organisations, I've already touched on it, but we have, for instance, a SkillsMatch platform. It's a digital platform that matches our business skills and resources with community needs and projects. It's an online matching resource that helps our businesses get in to do some very often one-off pieces of work that help community organisations develop. And we've seen a drive in requests for that, particularly over the lockdown period, where businesses, community organisations, for instance, are very keen to move their offering online and want support to do that, for instance, by way of an example. We put volunteers out into the local community across the province. Our member organisations are sending out groups of 10, 20 people into various different communities across the province to do half or 1 day hands-on volunteering. And we also have a number of programs, for instance, Ban the Box, where we encourage organisations to really rethink their recruitment processes and what they are doing and how they go about bringing people into the organisation in a way that's most inclusive to a number of different groups across society. So probably one of the best examples or most recent examples of how business in the community can really work and pull its members together in the time of a social need is that of the National Business Response Network. So as we know, if we dare cast our minds back to March 2020, we're almost at an anniversary, I guess. We were hit by the pandemic and we saw a lot of communities facing need in quite a short period of time. And what we did as an organisation was to completely pivot our operations and create a response network that created or provided food, technology and various support to those that needed it the most across the UK. And we had over 3,500 matches and almost 1 million people impacted by the National Business Response Network at a time whenever things were very, very challenging for a number of communities across both Northern Ireland and beyond. We also, and you touched on it, Gareth, at the start, we had a great initiative in partnership with the Urban Villages Initiative, where we helped a group of young people during the summer holidays to deliver food and activities. And I suspect that some of the businesses we have on this call may pick up on that in a bit more detail, so we'll not get into it too much now. But again, it was a fantastic opportunity of businesses pulling together in a very short period of time to tackle a social need. And similarly, a longer drawn out project, and that's a need that unfortunately has not gone away, but something that the pandemic has definitely shone a light on, is that of digital poverty and challenges that we have around digital inclusion. And what we did was to challenge our member organisations to donate devices, and we'll be moving on to hopefully get them to donate or share their skills with communities to try and enable them to become more digital in their operations. So we have 1,000 young people that have been positively impacted by our digital donations appeal, which saw a big range of organisations, and thank you to those. We've got some logos on here to let you know who participated, who stepped up and helped young people whenever it came to accessing digital, particularly during the lockdown. And it's not always about business looking out doors to try and identify the need and then respond. Sometimes it's about businesses saying, we have a business need. How can we be creative about how we address that and then do it in a way that helps society? And particularly in the Northwest a few years ago, and obviously these are stock images that we're using of people, these are not the candidates that were put through the programme. That would definitely go against all GDPR regulations. But we saw a particular challenge whenever it came to long-term unemployment in the Northwest, and the businesses were really feeling that in the Northwest in terms of recruitment challenges that they were facing. So they pulled together to create and co-design a programme that they got inspired by from the States called Strive to Work, and rolled that out in the Northwest to really positive effect, where they engaged particularly with those that were in long-term unemployment, and worked with that group in a very creative way and achieved some very strong into employment rates, which outperformed existing programmes at the time. That was driven by a business need, but it was a business need that in it being met actually helped drive down long-term unemployment rates in the local area as well. But so far, I've been talking about what's all great, and as if this is all rosy, and often it is. We were very lucky to have such a strong group of businesses across the province who genuinely and proactively want to engage in their communities in a very constructive way. But the things are changing, and I really want to just take a second before I finish to reflect on that. I touched on the start about how a lot of this now is couched within a broader responsible business agenda or strategy for an organisation. And that is becoming more and more the case, and is really, really starting to gain traction in the last 6 to 9 months. Businesses want to be strategic about their engagement with the local community. And this is being driven even further by an interest in what's being termed as ESG in investors. Investors have particular interest at the moment in funds that perform well against environmental impacts, social impacts, and governance impacts. They want to know that they are investing in companies that are proactively engaged in good, responsible business, because for them as investors, it's a less risky investment. They want to know that they have an organisation that is performing responsibly. So this interest in ESG is driving a conversation around social value and social impact. And investors and owners and people that are leading businesses now are starting a conversation around the so what question. And it sounds harsh, but the so what question is starting to become quite prevalent, in that they're saying it's really, really good that we are engaging in local communities, but so what? What is the impact of your intervention? What is it that you can learn, or you can say you have changed as a consequence of your intervention? So businesses are increasingly wanting to engage in communities, but also wanting to capture the impacts of their engagement. Nobody has cracked this nut yet, because it's a very, very difficult thing to do, but that is certainly where the interest of business and where we believe a lot of activity will go in the next while. And I do believe those community organisations that can help businesses answer the so what question are often a very, very strong footing to start with. businesses, because they want to be strategic, are interested in the broad social issues. They aren't always interested in niche, although some of them are and have carved very, very successful community programs within a niche. But generally, broad social issues are what is of interest to them. And the theme that's coming through for me more and more is that business is increasingly keen to collaborate around a social issue. And that is a shift that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years, where businesses realize by working together and not reinventing the wheel, that they can have a much bigger impact in a shorter period of time. But with that, we're seeing an increased interest in business of community doing the same. They want to see collaboration within the community sector. So those organisations that are interested or working towards similar issues pull together and see how they can combine their efforts and create a bigger impact by pulling together. So that's a few reflections on where I think the world of businesses engaging in their community is going. But those who are following me after this will bring this all to life. Thank you very much for your time.